And we are live on Discovery Paranormal, where we like to discovery things of the paranormally interests, And we talk about it all here, don't we? I mean, we talk about anything and anything that is what's considered paranormal. Paranormal, it's kind of a silly term these days because it really means an event that you can't use scientific equipment to record or even monitor. Now, those of us who are in the field know that that's false. Those of you who are out there who, if you watch some paranormal shows, you might get an idea of people using this equipment, right? Of taking measurements or trying to get answers. So basically, these are like, in some cases, cell sensors, the same thing that would also sense a cell phone, right? And when you say, what's the connection between, how can some ghost make a cell sensor go off? You're hoping that the the entity that you're dealing with can manipulate said device. They may not know how to do it at all. I use all kinds of stuff. I just try to get a baseline of answers, and make sure I'm just not talking to myself at that rate. You know what I mean? But interesting that cell sensors, if you talk on a cell phone for more than 45 minutes, it it ignites part of your brain. It like lights up a weird area 23 it's called in your brain. Seriously. Cell phones are bad for human consumption. When cell phones first came out, scientists, the FDA, all kinds of other agencies were saying, okay, we need to put a radiation sticker on these phones because they emit an unhealthy amount of radiation. Now, I just referenced cell sensor. You can see, boom, 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 how it lights up around that, or even sometimes like of course, cell phones or whatever has that kind of technology. Cell phones, laptops, whatever, right? But also there's electromagnetic radiation, EMR, and you can also have those devices. I think I paid 15 or 20 bucks for the one that I have. I like it because it lights up, and it goes red when something is heavy duty, if it's green if it's not, and it remembers the numbers that it finds throughout if you're investigating or using it. It can make a noise or not. Does it all. And you see, if you go on eBay and you're a ghost hunter, and tonight's not about ghost hunting, by the way. It's about paranormal investigation. It's more about a crashed UFO in the Baltic Sea, and I wholeheartedly believe it's that. But aside from that, we're going to get to that in a minute. If you're using devices and you want to be an investigator, if you're out there trying to get some info, rather, the best pictures I ever got was with a hunting camera. It wasn't even infrared, and there's a secret to what I used in that room as a light as to why I got that picture. I think, and I'm kind of investigating of the whys and the what's is of that. So, but my recorder, I've had it for years. It's an Olympus recorder, voice activated. But if I would just want to use it and record it, it has such a broad range of frequency, and I paid almost nothing for it years ago. I think 80 bucks or whatever. Now I think they're so cheap. But you want a broad range. If you think about investigation, if you're going to do anything in the world, investigating anything, you want the data, and you want to fill in all of the blanks. You want to go for the broadest spectrum that you can get a hold of to collect the most information that there is, so you can critically think it later on and put it all together and make your puzzle, right? That's really what it is. If you're getting responses from somebody or something or somewhere, that's great. If they're talking, I have full on class A EVPs, full sentences. I've had whole conversations going back and forth between me and the entity that I was talking to. The only other person there was Peter Canellis I do investigations with, and you can hear this person answer both of us. So especially, if you keep going back to a place and also you keep it light, I've been criticized in videos. You go to youtube.com/discovery paranormal, all one word, discovery paranormal. You'll see some of our videos, and I've been criticized about, hey, you guys have too much fun. You're laughing. And, oh, what am I supposed to do? You just go out there, be a broody bitch, cross my arms with my black t shirt on, with a grimace on my face. Who wants to hang out with that? You know what I mean? And I'm going to approach something like that, some cube head who's going to be disrespectful of my space that I'm haunting, man. I'll haunt you good. I'll follow you home. You know what I mean? I'll knock the dishes out your cabinet, man. Mess with me like that. We go into a place with respect, and we know the history. We call out to names, and you're understanding this person had a traumatic event that brought them to where they are now. And a lot of times they don't even know how to move on. If they're stuck like that, if they're earthbound, they got some issue or problem. So compounded with that, you have all this psychological stuff going on. It's because they don't have a body anymore. Doesn't mean they can't have psychological problems or emotional problems. It's like pure emotions, right? So good. You got your little devices, you go out there, you do your thing, you're respectful, you ask the questions, you try to get an answer. Yeah, a little levity is not so bad. You can have a laugh, and then they remember that. And you come back and that energy's still there. They remember that. Oh, I remember these guys. Remember, yeah, they can remember. You know, the thing that we're going to discuss this on the show about multi-dimensional, actually a multi-dimensional hypercube that scientists just came up with, and that goes into my crashed UFO. Okay, that's all. See, I'm bringing it all together for you. But there's things that people assume about physicalness of having a body, that you need to have that to have some kind of impact or be able to go on or communicate, that other type of thing, man. But I'm here to tell you, I've got pictures of full body apparitions that was proven to me of who those people were and how long ago they died, and they had no business being in that apartment at that time or that building at that time. These are spirits. It's not some anomaly of a camera. It's not some fakery going on. These are spirits. So this is why I do what I do. Anyway, here we go. Baltic Sea Anomaly. So yeah, by the way, when you buy your devices, go to Home Depot. Don't go on eBay and buy any ghost hunting crap, because it's all crap. Go to Home Depot. Go to the Home Depot and tell the geek standing there specifically you're looking for ghost hunting equipment. Maybe a nice 2x4 for anything else that runs at you in the middle of the night. I'll tell you, man, you go into these old buildings at night, you never know who else in there. So yeah, 2x4 might work. All right. 140,000-year-old Baltic Sea Anomaly crashed UFO on seabed, and this will blow your mind. So you probably heard about the Baltic Sea Anomaly. Maybe you heard little quips about it. The problem with our society is that you have these fake agencies like Snopes, just some guy sitting in his basement in his underwear. I heard the guy like married his hooker or that type of thing. It was like, you have people like that aren't really of high moral character to begin with. Not saying you can't marry your hooker. I'm just saying they're not of the high moral character or fiber that you'd be looking for in a fact finding mission. You know what I'm saying? So you have these people. It's fake. We can't prove that it's fake. I love how they're fact finding. They say something's false, or it's most likely false, because they don't have the information to say what it is and what it isn't. So then you don't get involved. If I don't know something and you ask me a question, I don't know it, I'm going to say, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to make it up like CNN. I'm not going to make up an answer, give you or lie to you, give you some answer. Depending, maybe just to mess with your head. I like to do that sometimes. But, you know, for serious information, yeah. So look at this. Explorers believe they're one step closer into discovering the truth behind the mysterious 140,000-year-old Baltic Sea anomaly, bearing a striking resemblance to the Star Wars Millennium Falcon, and it really does. The Baltic Sea anomaly appears to be formed of pieces of angular metal, prompting claims it is a crashed UFO. Swedish explorer Peter Lindberg and his Ocean X team of marine explorers discovered the strange object during a dive looking for an old shipwreck. Instead, he discovered the so called anomaly, right? So, Dennis Asberg, who made the discovery alongside Mr. Lindbergh, told TV4 in Sweden there is a mountain. It could be 20 to 25 meters tall with a canyon in the middle, and below it, there is a lot of loose rocks. The trail starts from here. Actually, there is two trails. There is one that leads to this large circle, and there is another trail that leads to the second object, which is about 200 meters from the round circle. We found it in the same time as the circle, but we had such a focus on the circle that we had not had enough time to look at the other object that is not circular. We were really surprised and puzzled. We were thinking of what could we have found here. Imagine that you're looking for a shipwreck. And these guys are in the business of finding all kinds of crap on the bottom of the ocean. They've seen a lot of stuff. They've seen all kinds of shipwrecks, all kinds of whatever, looking for treasure, looking for this, looking for that. I mean, and they have to be able to disseminate what junk is and what the real thing is, what they really found is it a rock formation? Is it something more substantial? And the seabed is known for sand and soot and crap, and then that covers things too, and or buries things. You really have no clue on what's buried down there. Ultimately, I mean, really buried down there. So there's a lot of exploration that needs to happen. So these guys are sitting there puzzled, thinking, "What the heck did they find?" And so they start looking for a natural explanation. I love that. It's not just someone jumping in. It's an alien, or it's this, it's that. Like, you have to be able to think your way through things and understand what you're dealing with, and moving forward, right? So he said we wanted to look into something. We wanted to look into some more, and decided to keep it totally quiet. They contacted geologists, marine biologists, and when they said that they had never seen anything like this, of course, more thoughts were triggered. It could be something really awesome that we found. So here you have these guys aren't going to, contact people who don't know anything. I mean, these guys are in the field doing this business. They're the ones who find stuff. So you have to work with geologists and marine biologists just to know what you're dealing with, right? And so they're not going to contact some Joe Schmo, some Tina I don't know any at all. They're going to contact a real person, real people, or teams of people, right? So, all right. So they've never seen it before on the ocean floor anywhere. These well seasoned geologists, marine biologists, whatever. Okay, so we know that so far. Even more intriguingly, a structure that looks like a staircase appears to lead to a dark hole, a second structure found nearby with a second structure. Speculation is rife over what the object could be, with some saying it could be an anti submarine device left over from World War II, a battleship gun turret, or indeed a flying saucer. So here's on the table could be some crap left over from World War II, could be some big ass gun, some kind of thing like that, or something that is not of our technology, our human technology, right? I'm not going to say not of Earth, because there's a lot of speculation that these aliens aren't alien, that they're actually here. They were probably here way before us, they have to say, and it's pretty much like that. And we're the newcomers as species wise, right? Aren't you lucky? So, despite looking like a huge rock, scientists say the structure appears to be made of metal. Electric and satellite diving equipment reportedly cuts out when going near the object. So, when have you ever heard of that before? Of an encounter with something that's not of normal technology, and the vehicle cuts cuts out, the thing cuts out, the plane cuts out, whatever it is. You encounter these craft. We have a lot of evidence out there of people that had these sightings, encountered these craft, and their vehicles shut off and everything else shut off, right? So here you have again this thing sitting there. I never heard of a rock that makes uh, electronic things shut down. It's a heck of a rock. You know what I mean? So Stefan Stefan Hogerborn, a professional diver with Ocean X, said anything electric out there, the satellite phone as well as stopped working when we were above the object. And then when we got away about 200 meters, it turned on again. Mr. Lindbergh's Ocean X team are continuing to investigate the object 5 years after making the initial discovery while exploring the floor of the Bothnian Sea between Sweden and Finland. They're still going at it. They can't get near the thing. Nobody can. You know, they're not the only team that's done this. So, and I'm looking at a picture of the thing. There's no way it's a rock. It doesn't have, it's got natural nothing, man. It looks like man-made lines, man-made or not man-made. Somebody manufactured this thing. This is no rock. It doesn't resemble any kind of rock. In fact, it's just kind of sitting on top of a rock ledge, you know. So whatever it is, it's got some very interesting lines to it that I doubt that nature could even create. You talking about 90-degree angles and all this carved out stuff, and I don't know, man. It does. You got a picture of the Millennium Falcon here. I'll tell you something. It's freaky, man. You call George Lucas and see where he got that idea from. you know, He said the object is made of metals which nature could not reproduce itself. Sat nearly 300 feet below the surface and measuring 26 feet tall, the marine explorers found the strange craft with a side scan sonar. Mr. Lindberg said, I've been the biggest skeptic. I was kind of prepared for finding just stone. For me, it has been an amazing experience. I think this is a very odd thing. It's odd in its shape. It's odd in its appearance. It's tough to give the explanation as to what it might be exactly, since different scientists have many different theories, right? But they all just don't have one theory. They have many different theories, and who knows, right? Who knows? But whatever it is, he says, it is something we do not usually find in nature, sitting in the dark, cold depths of the Baltic Sea. So it's unusual. Unusual. It is though the object could be at least 140,000 years old after a university professor linked the mysterious disk to the Ice Age, right? Volker Bruchet, an associate professor of geology in Stockholm University, said, my hypothesis is that this object, this structure, was formed during the Ice Age many thousands of years ago. Ocean X is expected to return to the wreck to continue investigating the discovery. So his hypothesis is that, why? What do you base that in? A comparative? There's nothing to compare it to, and Ice Age, Smice Age, it's not one, it's not going to create that shape and those lines. This is a very specifically designed thing. It's not a falling off of an iceberg. It wasn't formed during the Ice Age. It's not some rock from the Ice Age. So you really don't know 140,000 years. And even if you say it's 140,000 years, then damn, it should have been covered up already in soot and crap sitting down there. No, that long, or they're saying it's made of that a metal that these things won't stick to. Looks pretty smooth still to me, basically. So Mr. Lindbergh said we will pretty much just be able to do the same as we did in 2012. It's not sure, not for sure yet that we're involved in a new TV project. It might give us the opportunity. Yeah, they probably need funding. It costs money. These guys, deep ocean explorers, they have to find treasure. Otherwise, they got no money. Dennis Asberg, who made the discovery alongside Mr. Lindbergh, told TV4 in Sweden there's a lot of mountain. I already read that already. Let's see. So he said the trail starts from here. Actually, there's two trails. So it looks like this thing skidded in there, like it crashed and skidded. So if it was the ice age, most likely there was no water in there, right? Because the ice age, the whole planet wasn't a ball of ice, but there was more ice than there would normally be, and the temperature, is slightly different. When people hear ice age, they kind of get the wrong idea of what ice age really is. But we were in it for quite some time, right? If something's going to skid in the ground and make a mark, it's not going to happen in the ocean. You know, even if it's going some incredible speed, it's not going to happen like that. So most likely, and think about it. Last week we talked about Antarctica, right? And Admiral Byrd and his mission there, and he encountered this person called the Master and brought him a message back to DC. Fascinating, man. But if you think about that and you think about the South Pole, it was a plush jungle 2 million years ago, you know? So when you start looking back in time on the planet, thinking what things were like back then, Egypt, again, was another place that was like plush and like it was like the Amazon. Look at it now, you know? So stuff happens. And then it wasn't because of global warming or anything, but the global warming as per se, right? But I like this. We were really surprised and puzzled. We were thinking, what is it that we have found here? This is not a wreck at the time that we thought for sure. There's a natural explanation. We wanted to look into some more and decided to keep totally quiet. I love that, man. You know, they kept quiet about it initially. They didn't want to say anything. They didn't want to bring a lot of attention to it, right? So I'm going to say this. All right. Mm, they went down and took even samples of the area. That's kind of cool. They tried getting close to it. I love the fact that they couldn't even get close to it, you know? So, and then here we go. The group revisited the site the following year, intending to get a clearer image, but claimed mysterious electrical interference prevented them from even getting close, you know? And you know where I get these cool stories from? And it's not from like, the Inquirer. I like the small town newspapers and places. Last week when I talked about Antarctica and how all these troops got killed and whatever, nothing was said in the American media at that time about that. Not for a long time, right? And then comes conspiracy theorists will come out with the news. I got those news stories from the Chilean newspapers at the time that were just plain old mom and pa newspapers. These reporters were talking to the soldiers who were mangled and missing body parts and whatever. They told them what happened. And it's that simple. That's a great way of finding information. It's that simple. So, but yeah, I like the whole. Another person's calling you the area near it like an underwater Stonehenge, a portal into another world. Oh yeah, man. Would you want to really travel into another world like portal out, go into another world? They better have good food or something, man. You don't want to zoom out into a world that doesn't have the stuff you like. Some bagels or something, man. Something, right? Some animal is going to eat you. That's no fun either. I'd kind of want to put a probe out there first, man. A little bit of probing. Aliens do their probing. I probe also, man. I want to see what's going on. So I like the fact that they did all these geological samples of the granites, the sandstones, the things that are in the area, loose pieces of volcanic rock. You know, uh, all of these things have nothing to do with this object. They said, I mean, the whole thawing process of the ice age and what happened in that area, the glacial, post glacial processes, nothing there is represented like this. So it's solely unique, really. Well, the two objects they supposedly found, right? So, but scientists are saying that the lines on the anomaly could never be represented in nature. What do you think of that? And These are scientists, man. I don't know who. Big muckety mucks. Is it the Millennium Falcon? Maybe. You know, I don't know if it's a crashed UFO or something, man. Their technology is not that great. If they're sitting there crashing, it did keep together though. But you would think that they would get it out of there too. I mean, like have a little UFO tow truck that come around, take the thing, not leave it there, unless it's some kind of escape craft. Could be anything from another civilization. No, I mean, people don't live forever. Do you think even beings from if they're beings from other planets, think they live forever? Of course not. So I think I think that basically we are pretty tender in this world that you can get in trouble real easy. You fall out of a window and die. You can choke on steak and die. There's some dumb stuff. The Darwin Award. People out there doing stupid things trying to die. I don't get that either. So, but they're pretty much ruling out natural, just natural shapes, and they went into geophysics. And these guys like really got into it. I love that. They got into it, and they don't know what the hell's going on. They don't know what it is. They just know they can't get close to it, and then their junk shuts off just like that. Interesting. But I'm going to share this. I like referencing this because when I think of like ships, alien ships, or not even alien, but further technology, I mean, people that have better technology than us anyway. When I think of that, I think of Germany, of course, man. Not because I like German cars and Fräuleins, stuff like that, but the alien battle that happened over Nuremberg in 1561. So listen to this. At daybreak on April 14th, 1561, residents of Nuremberg, Germany woke to an alien aerial battle raging above their heads. The heavens were illuminated with bright lights that moved back and forth for hours before a huge black spear shaped object appeared, blotting the sky. Finally, an enormous crash rattled across the city, signaling an end to the strange affair. The phenomenon over Nuremberg have long been regarded as one of the most important recorded early UFO sightings, which is still regarded today by enthusiasts as proof of an extraterrestrial battle within Earth's orbit. Modern skeptics and scientists have other views, but you know what? I'll tell you what the other views are. And this is very funny to me. Scientists who are not from there, I mean, they weren't there in 1561. They can only guess at what it could have been in nature. And this is my problem with science. They're so one-sided. They're all on this left side, like, there has to be another explanation. I refuse to believe it's paranormal. That's the stuff that makes me believe they're not true scientists. They are not, because you have to have an open mind in science. And if you don't have an open mind in science, you're never going to discover anything, right? So, the original written account was published in April of 1561 within a local newspaper. It's called a broadsheet newspaper, accompanied by a stunning woodcut produced single-handed by a local painter and illustrator Hans Gleiser. But you know what's cool? Not just the artwork that came out of it and the newspaper article. All these people had some kind of connection to this where they had to describe it somehow. But the scientists came out and said, oh, it's sunspots, solar flare. I'm a photographer. I take pictures of sunsets and all that. Sunrises too, if I'm up. You know, I have pictures of sunspots, solar flares, all kinds. They're not still called sunspots. They're actually part of a solar flare, of an arc of a solar flare. But there's little spots that will appear and that type of thing. That's not this. Okay. That's not this. According to the report, townsfolk saw hundreds of glowing shapes within the early morning skies, including spheres, crosses, globes, moons, and tubes. Now, let me stop for a second. When was the last time recently we heard about those shapes? How about when the military came out with their report. The Pentagon came out with a report on UFOs, and above this aircraft carrier were these objects that were spheres, crosses, globes, moons, tubes, floating around that they say is not alien, but they don't know what it is. Not alien, but they don't know what it is. Which is kind of saying, well, maybe they're from here, but they're just not alien. But we don't know what they are, right? And they do know what they are. They do. It all ties in with Antarctica and Admiral Byrd. It's all one big long story. It's not. It's not several stories put together. This is one big long story. So all right. So each of these shapes moving phonetically across the heavens. The dramatic report recounted a detailed and frightening shared vision. Between 4 and 5 a.m., civilians of Nuremberg were in the streets conducting their daily business. Who's up between 4 and 5 a.m.? I would have slept through that. People try to get me up. Oh, look, something in the sky. I'm like, leave me alone. They're up 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning doing their business. I guess you got to get up early, man. Back in the day. I would have, this person even says, I would have slept through the whole thing. As the sun slowly rose, two blood red crescents grew at its center, while flanking on it on all four sides were red and black balls in varying groups, right? Between these balls were a handful of red crosses and enormous slashes of bright red coloring, taking the shape of reeds. In short, the sky was busier than about the JFK airport. That was that, man. Probably busier than that. And here's like a cool picture. Can't show you because I don't have access to show you the cool picture of all these things. I mean, these are all tubes that had lights all up and down. I mean, these don't look like anything the sun's going to create. That's for sure. At once, this collage of shapes started fighting with one another, with globes and rods flying across the sky in and out of the sun for about an hour. Eventually, the fighting became so ferocious that the alien shapes became so tired from their exertions that they fell to the earth in a mass of flames before burning up on land in a cloud of hellish smoke. So, whenever you ever see a sun pillar do that, you know, or anything, right? After the flaming battle came the enormous black spear, the point fixed to the west. The navigational spear aspect was the greatest interest to 16th century academics who saw the report as an untapped and unexplained sign from God, right? In the original news notice, an early form of that's the earlier form of newspaper writer Hans Glasser interpreted this as one of the many signs of God sent to encourage man to repent for his sins, which was promptly hated or dismissed by an increasingly godless world, like today, right? you know, Sodom and Gomorrah type of action. The display was a reminder from the Almighty to repent and be weary of his wrath. So they didn't know what it was. They blame it on God, right? That's pretty much what they do, man. They want to kill something, they kill it for God. They want to blow something up, they burn something down, they do it for God. They burn people at the stake, they do it for God, right? But God loves you. So these people don't. So when it comes to the meeting of celestial wars and theological rantings, I think that there's a lot going on in Nuremberg, right? So as historically and artistically important as the events of 1561 were, the beautifully illustrated report, basically all the God's anger was undoubtedly exaggerated, and the story passed between onlookers and whatever because people were like, "Oh, it's God." Even back then, people were like, "Oh, it's God." Of course, you know what I mean. Most contemporary scholars and skeptics believe it was misinterpreted sundog, otherwise known as solar flare or whatever, man. Sun pillar. There are sun pillars, actually. And that creates an atmospheric halo created by an interaction of sunlight with ice crystals in the atmosphere. Yeah, there's a picture of it. I have lots of them. but it's not an alien battle over the sky. It's not little shapes, you know, fighting each other and falling and smoke and destroying and whatever, right? So I took to Google Earth. I love Google Earth, man. I'm a Google Earth fool. I took to Google Earth and I looked at Nuremberg, Germany. And I'm looking at the area as a whole, that if one of these craft crashed, most likely, I mean, 1561 is quite a long time ago, but not in the world of radiation, it's not. Radiation lasts for a long, long time. If radiation it hits the ground in the soil, nothing's going to grow there. It's just pretty much barren, right? So I look at Nuremberg, I look out into the hills, and I see these large swaths of forest that are just bald, you know, big enough where something could have crashed, right? Nothing there, no houses, nobody would clear that, no reason. I mean, this is in the middle of nowhere. There's a lot of nature in Germany, middle of nowhere out in those hills. So you would think that at some point teams would go there and take soil samples and see what they could find, maybe even find, metals and whatever. It's really not if it's if it's advanced materials, most likely it's not going to decay. So anyway, and then a very similar battle took place over Switzerland a short time later. So then we get into the world of why can't we all get along? You know what I mean? If there was two groups battling each other, it just goes to show you that if it was a higher intelligence, it's not that much of a higher intelligence than what people are today. We just don't have that kind of technology yet. And I say yet, right? Because we're going to talk about multidimensional hypercubes. All right. Now, scientists who are developing this in their experiments, the researchers discovered a new kind of superposition whose classical building blocks represent the corners of multidimensional hypercubes. The researchers worked with tiny membranes in order to develop states for novel quantum sensors whenever they encountered more or less, basically, they found these things by accident. And that's how it goes when you think outside the box and you start going in different directions. If you think it's already written and done, you have no business being in the world of science, because science is exploration. So the quantum hypercube states seem particularly promising when it comes to the construction of novel quantum sensors. They are able to circumvent accuracy limits by taking advantage of quantum interference. So the example of stones in the water show that even large stones cause fine patterns in the superposition of the waves. So when we talk about physics, whenever anybody asks me, Michael, what's physics? Yeah. And I'm like, it's some vibrating waves. And they're like, hey, vibrating waves. I'm like, that's right. Which is the basic gist of it. You tear down everything from everything, every that lamp in front of you, the desk that you're touching, the computer you're touching, or whatever, man. The materials involved there, when you strip it down to its beginning form, they're vibrating waves, right? And these are all frequencies. So, which a lot that's why a lot of people ask, is reality reality? Is reality real? Is reality that we create around us? I mean, I know that we can take ideas and create things from those ideas. I mean, you see examples around you all the time of that every day, constantly. Someone makes a pizza. That's it, man. That's their quantum pizza, right? So this is humans with working in quantum physics, making tunnels and doorways, trying to understand that unbelievably big world. It's actually a small world of of quantum physics, right? So we are in the macro level of physics. We are in the large tangible, level, and there's a micro level. So that's the quantum level, right? Micro level. And I also have an idea that there's a mega level. In fact, I think that there's It's endless. The different levels that go up and down. Now, every one of these levels, things act opposite of. So, like in our world, compared to the quantum world, what happens in the quantum world is opposite from our world, and things that go on in the quantum world are mind-boggling because we could never do that in our macro level, like these particles moving from one place to another instantaneously, or dividing a particle and both of them working in unison, but they could be hundreds of miles away from each other, but they're still connected. That's what you got to study, and that's what you have to understand about advanced technology. So, all right, optical quantum sensors, and I'm going somewhere with this. This is all. At present, quantum sensors are still in the development stage, right? However, promising applications are already emerging. For example, optical quantum sensors can achieve higher accuracy with less light. This is particularly important for examinations of biological systems such as living cells, which must be treated extremely carefully. One possible field of the application is medical methods such as magnetic resonance, tomography, and all that. But then you can get into other things. I mean, it's endless, endless. When I first moved up to Ithaca, Cornell University had just created the nanobot engine. It was the early '90s, mid '90s, 1995, I think, 1996, something like that. Imagine the technology since then. I mean, they have a whole nano building. They have, they're in the forefront of nanotechnology, and that's just one drop in a bucket, one Ivy League university versus so many others. And when you get down to the molecular level and being able to reassemble things and change things, you could eradicate any kind of disease. You could have someone's missing an arm, you can grow them that arm. They can change themselves if they want, their appearance even on the molecular level, So and you need no more surgeries. You wouldn't need. I mean, there's a lot of bad you could do with it too. You know, I mean, it could be an assassin force like you wouldn't believe. You could put in people's water supply, and they got nanobots in them. So there's the deadly side of technology, and then there's the beautiful side of technology, right? And this is the duality of man. You got that one side or the other side. Unfortunately, the powers that be tend to choose the destructive side and not the healing creative side. If something healing comes out of it, it's solely a byproduct of the other things that they're lurching for. And this is a huge problem with the evolution of humans, and also the enlightenment of people. I think that people will never truly understand even things like love if they can't exist on a level where, you know I mean, where you don't have that fear. You're simple. Got people with food needs, and they don't not gonna have enough food, or people who are homeless, or people who are suffering of cancer, people who are in pain every day. I mean, or they're afraid for themselves they're going to die, and they're going to leave their family, and maybe they're the only provider. Man, there's billions of stories out there every day. The only thing that we can do is help one another and ease people's pain. And that act of kindness, that lifts you up to a level that in fact, I'll share with you my little graphic that you can't see. It lifts you up to a level of attainment, right? And this is something that I gotten into when I was searching through religions and looking for the answers when I was young. I was around 11 or 12 years old, right around when I got involved with listening to AC/DC. Dirty deeds done dirt cheap. That's right. But I got into religion. I got into, what's Judaism, what's Catholicism, and whatever. And the Catholic Church, had a big unit in my town of Rockville Center, Long Island, where they ruled with an iron fist. Actually, and my father had a gas station, and he would take care of the cars from that. They had an account there, so they come and get gas, or if something was wrong with them. But they're all mainly new cars anyway. And then these priests, like, one particular had a Mercedes, like, the nuns would have like a Buick or something like that. It's just kind of interesting. But when I got into religion, and there was a lot of hypocrisy because I had asked my mom, "How do you become like a priest?" And she had said, "You got to give up sex and give up, wealth and all that other stuff." And I'm like, "Well, the priest who comes into the station has a Mercedes, and then my father's like, it's an expensive car, and so it didn't work in my mind of how you can take a vow of poverty and drive a Mercedes, the two things that it just didn't connect. Just like when they told me Santa Claus was coming down the chimney, and looked at the chimney. I thought about it, and I knew there was no fat guy coming down that chimney. It was ridiculous. And I caught my mom putting gifts under the tree many occasions. So this is the deal: levels of consciousness. If you want to evolve and want to bring yourself to a higher level, there's negative emotions to stay away from, and you're going to be surprised when I tell you because you're going to be like, "Whoa!" You're like, "Whoa!" Right? The top level, of course, is peace. Not being at war, not having a rift, not having a problem, not fighting, no adversarial, nothing. Peace. Peace. You ever achieve peace? You ever get that moment where you're like, man, this is great. This is great. And you know it's fleeting because it's not gonna last. Because there's peaks in there. Peaks. Because people will bring you into those peaks, people who are lesser of you spiritually, but they want to bring you down because maybe a lot of them are in a hole and they want to bring you into the same hole. So think about that piece. So the the level we'll call synchronicity and extraordinary outcomes. If you want to achieve these things and be in sync with all, you want to experience joy, gratitude, and love, and do it freely unto yourself, right? The next level is peak performance without stress, which is understanding, knowing where people are coming from. Not forgiving people for doing terrible things, mind you, but knowing where things are coming from. Maybe forgiving yourself, you know, but understanding things in general, being able to explore, do your research, and know what you're talking about, and know what kind of instead of just jumping to conclusions or whatever, but you have to understand, right? The next level down is happiness and productivity, right? Forgiveness, optimism, trust, and courage. And forgiveness, it's more about, like I said, forgiving yourself. You know what I mean? But if you look at a slug as a slug as a slug, or a snake as a snake as a snake, snake's going to be a snake no matter what. You have to understand it is a snake, and you have to either make a decision you're going to deal with it or not deal with it, right? You can avoid it too, right? So, but for that forgiveness, the forgiveness mainly, people tend to blame themselves for everything. Children blame themselves and their parents get divorced, I mean, so there's forgiveness that needs to happen within yourself. Optimism. You can't go forward without optimism. You can't be pessimistic all the time. You have to think like, okay, man, we can do this. I can have that faith inside of myself to do this, and be optimistic about the outcome. Because if you're not going to be able to create that reality for yourself. The outcome's not going to be good, right? And trust. Trust is something you need to have. You trust people once, but trust in yourself too. Trust and it's more about having that faith in yourself and trust in knowing you can do. And courage, because courage brings it all together. If you don't have courage, you're not going to understand the whole rest of it, right? Including love, So the negative emotions that you want to stay away from, how about this? Pride. Pride. When people say, I'm proud of my color, I'm proud of my flag, I'm proud of this. You know what pride gets you? It gets you a lot of suffering. It gets you a lot of structure. A lot of people who will take odds with something else. I'm proud to be this, and if they're not, then all of a sudden they're at odds because they're not part of that group. It's separation, man. You know, anger, something to stay away from. That's a given. If you're angry, you're not going to do anybody any good around you. You're not going to do yourself any good. It's negative emotion. And then some people are angry all the time. They just run around angry. You see them out there. You see them out there. Sometimes they're driving in front of you, want you to go 48 miles an hour in a 55, and then you pass them, they give you the finger. People like that, right? Desire is a terrible negative emotion. What allows you say about desire? Live without it, man. He said there's no greater curse than desire. So this crosses through all philosophy from the ages. These are the things that you want to stay away from, right? And how about this? The lowest level, fear. something that will stop you from doing great things, something that will stop you from enjoying yourself and being you. Fear, right? Grief. There's a time to grieve and there's a time to move on with that grief. But grief is a very difficult thing to navigate through, and it can bring you to all kinds of levels of depression, all kinds of levels of not functioning. So same for apathy, the same for guilt, and the same for shame. Guilt, yeah, you make a mistake, you do something wrong, you move on. You know what I mean? You got to forgive yourself, give it some time. Not that you're dismissing anything if you did something really wrong or whatever, but you just got to move on because you can't wallow in your own misery and wallow in your own guilt and that shame. If you're feeling shame, all these things are religiously based, aren't they? Shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, pride, anger, desire. All those things exist inside of religion. Do they ever talk about real love or gratitude or joy? No, they talk about the love of that money. Here comes that collection plate or whatever. There's a box to put money in, or here's another cause, whatever, man. I'm going to leave you guys thinking about that. And I'm moving on up to the east side. All right. I'll see you guys next week on Discovery Paranormal on United Public Radio Network, UPRN, talkradio.com. Come join us. Bye.